Hello again, welcome to another project using the fabulous Lavinia stamps, the Fox and the Fairy. Of course, as usual, we're starting with the materials. First of all, we have the Versafine inks, Medieval Blue, Charming Pink, Chianti and Cheerful. Moving on then to the Distress Oxide, we have Picked Raspberry, Wild Honey and Spiced Marmalade. We're also using Rose Madder and Shadow Grey in the Archival, Versamark and some sparkly white embossing powder, and of course some glitter glue. We're also using our Posco pens and some watercolour markers. These are the Zig Clean Colour. We're using a Stardust in silver, a black fine liner and a white gel pen, a pencil and the Stabilo All black pencil for those touch-ups. We're also using the chalk pastel pencils in various colours, blues, yellows and pinks, and we have the putty eraser as well for those. We have a large round brush and some Liquitex gesso. Now the stamps are lovely today. We have the Floral wreath, which most people are using to create a wreath, which is absolutely gorgeous, but I thought I would use it in a different way today. We have the lovely raven, the fern branch, Rufus, some birds and the red pine in large. Absolutely beautiful. We also have a mask cut out from Raven. We're going to dampen the card first of all, and in terms of the sprays we're using the Lindy's Gang purple, and I'll have the description in the description box. We have Peony, I think that is, in the Dylusions, and we also have Sunshine Yellow. Now this is a luster spray from That's Crafty in lime. I'm having a wee bit of difficulty spraying it. And we're also using Distress Oxide. This one's in Squeezed Lemonade, and that makes a big difference, and I like to layer it with mica inks just for a different effect. So next we put the blank card on top and we make an ink sandwich, and as you can see it has a lovely effect in blending the colours. Now they are dry and I'm using them the other way up, and I'm deciding which ones to use. I've decided to go for the paler one and I've cut it down slightly. You can see the larger one is A4 and it's slightly smaller. Now for the foreground, and although we have a lovely sort of bottom that could be snow, I've decided to paint over that and create a more stylised hilly type foreground. And I'm just taking the large brush and I'm sweeping it in hill shapes. Now you'll see that I'll be doing a couple of layers to create different tones. And this helps with building up the perspective, and when you see the second layer that I add in a minute or two, you'll see that the layer towards the front is a lot whiter. Now that some landscaping is done, I'm taking a circle template for the sky and creating the shape for the sun. I'm also taking my brush and some water, and I'm just filling the centre of the circle, and the idea is to blot out some of the colour to make it paler. Now to soften the harsh edge, I'm taking my pastel pencils and blending those around the outside of the sun, and you'll see that I layer down different colours of yellow and white and basically just smudge it out to, as I say, remove that harshness of the edge. Next, I'm taking my Distress Oxide inks and I've turned the picture around, and what I'm doing is I'm taking the smoothie and blending the top of the picture to really make the sun shine a bit brighter and I do this quite often by darkening the top edge and blending it forward. I'm using the lighter colour, and now I'm moving to the more orangey darker tone and trying to blend that in. And in a minute I will be taking the pink as well and sweeping it across the sun to create the impression of hazy clouds. Now to the stamping, and I'm going to be adding quite a few colours of ink to this stamp. It's not altogether that successful in the end up, but the idea behind doing this is I didn't want the fox to be black or just one plain colour. I sort of wanted him to take on some of the hues of the background, to take into account the ambient light, I suppose. So as you can see, I've added several of the tones from the background, and it's a bit difficult when you're stamping on top of gessoed background. It won't always stamp very clearly. I'm pressing it down quite firmly, but as you can see, I'll require a little bit of touching up. So I'm taking the same colours of ink that I added to the stamp, and I'm just filling those colours in using a small paintbrush. Now I'm taking the beautiful wreath stamp and some dark blue, medieval blue ink, and I'm going to ink that up. And what I'm also going to do is remove some of the ink from the top edge, and the reason I'm doing that is that's where the fairy is going to sit, and I don't want to double up the stamping. I'm also, when stamping the fairy, going to take away the ink from the branch part of the stamp, so that it looks as though the fairy is sitting on top of the berry wreath rather than the branch. And this is something again that I do quite often. You use only the part of the stamp that you require. Now I'm masking off the fairy, and the purpose of this is to stamp over the top of her so that the foliage etc. will appear in the background. I'm also using the archival inks for this because they're paler in tone and therefore will appear farther back. They also have the effect of taking on some of the light of the sun, given that they're paler, and they really are lovely colours, and they've been recommended by Eileen Goodwin. More purchases as a result of watching her videos. So as you can see there, it creates a contrast for the darker foliage towards the front. Now going back to the foreground, I've taken the fern branch and some copy paper that's been torn and creating some interest around the fox. So you can see that I'm first of all stamping the paler colour, and you'll see that gradually I'll build that up to darker colours. I'll also be adding shadow behind the fox, and I'll be using the pastel pencils again for that. But don't do what I did. When you are adding the pastel pencils, make sure to dry off the ink from the fern stamps first. So yes, that's just building it up, and sometimes I take the smoothie and blend a little ink at the base of the stamp, and that creates the impression of depth. It's very handy when using the chalk pastel pencils to have the putty eraser because this can remove layers and unwanted chalk pastel from areas of the picture. I'm back using the chalk pastels again, and with very pale colours I'm adding those on top of the gessoed background and some of the stamping, and I suppose it creates a misty effect, but it also adds some colour from the sky in a very pale way to the foreground. And it's this whole thing of ambient light. Snow isn't just pure white, particularly if there's a strong sky. You'll have reflections of the sky in the snow, and this is used in painting quite a lot. So I'm adding pale yellow, using the putty eraser again, you can see, just to remove some of the chalk pastel. Again, I've built that up with a deeper yellow. Now I'm removing some of the colour from the background in the same way as I did for the sun. I'm also adding the water and removing the ink, blotting that off for the berries. Now to add a little snowy sparkle and twinkle, taking the copy paper again and masking off the foreground, I'm using the red pine in large and the Versa Mark ink, and you'll see that I'm going to stamp that several times and use the embossing powder and then heat it up to create the desired effect. I'm also going to do the same with the fern branch at various places. Next I'm doing some colouring, and I'm using the Posca pens, of course, my favourite, and these are good because the opacity means that you can paint over the stamping, and because it's Christmas we have the little Christmas hat on the fairy, which is very cute, and adding a little Santa hat. I'm then going to take the Zig Clean Colour water-based markers and layer that on top of the berries, and I'm using berry colours going from dark to light, also using yellow, and you'll see later on I'll be adding lots of little highlights in white and pink. Now the white gel pen is very important at this stage, as well as adding the highlight. As I've said, I'm also going to be adding dots of snow, and what I want to create is the impression that the weight of the fairy has dislodged snow from the berries. So in a minute I'll be trying to put in little speckles of snow dropping down from the berries on top of poor little fox, poor little Rufus. So you can see there the little dots of snow. I'm also going to be highlighting parts of the snow on the ground and adding deeper little sections of snow on top of the berries. One of the final phases of the picture is to darken round the edges. I'm first of all taking the paler pink in Charming Pink it's called, and I'll also deepen that with the Chianti colour, which is a slightly darker reddy pink. The idea for doing this is, I suppose, to draw your eye into the picture, and when artwork has a border, it tends to focus the eye closer to where you want to look. So, and it adds also to the atmosphere of the picture. Now it's time for those final touches. I decided to take the dark blue ink and the bird stamp and to add that to the top of the picture, and I think that helped a lot with the composition. I've also mounted the picture, which is something that I do at this stage before adding the glitter glue, and we've diamond stickles, and of course it's important to give the fairy sparkly wings. I also add highlights to the berries and some little paw marks in the foreground for Rufus. Well, that completes our project for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I want to take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy Christmas. I know we've had a dreadful year, and it's my hope that 2021 will bring better things for us all. So if you liked the video, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and hit the like button. I'll see you soon.